Hey you, lovely that you turned in. I'm very pleased to have you here. And today I'm going to talk about the SX-70, how to use it, how to open the camera, figure out what to do with it, and also how to get great photos. Opening the camera is probably the most intimidating thing about the SX-70, but actually it's quite easy, so let's do it together. What you really have to do is, first of all, you have to pop off the eyelid. So eyelid, eyepiece, it's kind of the same thing, whatever. And after you've popped up the eyepiece, you can now pull on it. And I would pull on like 3 points. So up here, you can hold your fingers, and down here. So like this, and then hold with the other hand on the bottom half of the camera. And there you go. Camera's open. It has a lot of resistance, feels like you're breaking something in the camera, but that is the way it's supposed to be. I feel like the older they get, the stronger resistance they have in opening, and but I actually think you cannot do much wrong, besides if you pull out the eyepiece and then kind of pull sideways, then you're breaking this relatively thin plastic. Is probably very easy, but as long as you're not aggressively pulling to the side, you're gonna be fine, and you're gonna be able to open the camera as flawlessly as that. And if you have it like this, and some models you can just pull and it'll like lock in here on the side, but my model is not really that great in that regard, so I'm just gonna always press back on this like front piece and wait until it locks in, and then the camera's open like that. And if you want to close it again, you can just press on here and you're gonna lock it in again. The red button is, as you can see, just for taking the photo. So pressing on here is very self-explanatory, I guess. Above that we have the focus wheel. So the focus wheel is obviously used for focusing. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit, how to manually focus and not miss focus, because that is like one of the most common reasons why Polaroids turn out blurry. On the other side here, you have the exposure meter. The exposure meter is pretty self-explanatory as well. You have this dark side of the wheel and the bright side of the wheel, and pulling or like showing more of the dark side is going to make your picture darker, and pulling it to the lighter side is going to make it brighter. Therefore, if you turn it brighter, you're going to have a slower shutter speed, which lets in more light. And the internet is not too sure about it. Like I read up, the aperture is supposed to be fixed at f8, but it can also be changed, so I'm not too sure if it's also gonna lower the aperture for that, but in most sense this is mostly controlling the shutter speed. And the film is obviously Polaroid SX-70 film, which has a speed of 100 ISO, so it's not very fast, but I'll get to that in the last section of this video, where I'm going to talk about how to take good photos, because you really need a lot of light for this film. Here on this side you have also the button to open the film section. So if you press on here, this camera mouth opens and you have this kind of animal. Inserting the film is also quite easy. On the film there is like a kind of a lid, and you just always have to make sure that the lid is pointing downwards and the photo is pointing upwards. Alright, another thing I want to talk about before I'm touching on how to manually focus with this camera. So here on the side there is kind of like a thumb grip for your thumb, obviously. So it's meant to be used as your thumb goes here, your finger goes on top of the focus wheel, sets the focus, and then if you want to press, you just press on the shutter button and then you take the photo. What you never really should do is, when you hold the camera, is block the front side of this camera, because even though you can't really see it, down here is where the photo comes out, and if your hand is here, it might be that the photo is bent while coming out, which can create some cool looking artifacts, but if you don't want to have artifacts, just don't put your hand on here, and in the worst case what could happen is that the photo gets stuck inside or whatever. Just make sure to not have your hand here, and it's not a problem to put it on like a surface, because the photo can still come out, but this photo opening just shouldn't be blocked. Alright, so now we're gonna learn how to focus. So putting our thumb into here and our index finger on the focusing wheel, and you're just gonna look through it like that. And if you look inside the camera, you're gonna see that there is a circle, or rather two half circles, and the bottom one of those half circles is slightly different shape from the upper one. So if you're gonna look at an object, preferably a straight line, as you can see you have this slight shift in the line throughout the circle, and basically just focus on an object. It is mandatory that you adjust the focus wheel in the way that the circle or whatever structure goes through the circle is aligned in the way that it is in reality, so it's not distorted in any way. And once it's not distorted, you can successfully assume that you have focused correctly. Good to go. You can press on the shutter button and your picture is going to be sharp, as long as you take into consideration that you have enough light. There are a couple of ways blurred pictures can be created. First of all, it's just the person is moving after the photo is taken, or the camera is moved after the photo is taken, which both are caused basically if the shutter is open for too long, and that can obviously happen if you have too little light. So basically the best way to make sure you're getting good photos out of this camera is just to shoot in bright daylight or in very bright sunlit rooms. If you want to go into like artificial lighting, the problem is that Polaroid film has quite a small dynamic range. Therefore, you have to make sure that everything you're lighting and everything in the photo is somewhat evenly lit. So if you just put a lamp on a dark room, it might be that their face might be totally overexposed and the rest of the room might be totally underexposed, and the photo will just turn out really crappy because the Polaroid film doesn't have like a crazy dynamic range. So something you can do if you still want to shoot in lower light is get a tripod and try to lit evenly. And another thing that you can do if you want to be a little experimental and you have very few light sources but you still want to have a faster shutter speed is you can shine a phone flashlight directly into the exposure sensor, which kind of conveys the camera that something very bright is outside, even though it's not. However, because the film is 100 ISO, it is not too smart to do that, as long as you cannot really guarantee that enough light will hit the sensor. Because this exposure meter is not like something super modern, it might also kind of miss the exposure on what you're trying to shoot. Considered by today's standards, definitely not the most high-tech exposure meter. So what you should always keep in mind is that the camera has a tendency to overexpose in bright sunlight outside. So usually if I'm shooting outside, I'm gonna put the exposure meter kind of like this to the side, so the pictures turn out evenly exposed. However, what I would do if I'm shooting in shadows or I have shadows in my picture, I would turn the exposure rather back to center so it is evenly divided between the bright and the dark side. So that was the video of the SX-70. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments down below. And I hope you got some valuable information out of this video, and yeah, maybe shoot better pictures with your SX-70 now. So thanks for watching, and maybe see you in the next one. Bye.